meaning it'll be streaming, we just won't be able to see it.
Right, you won't be able to see what's live, so.
Okay. I can live with that.
Good evening. I'd like to call the August 4th, 2022 school board meeting to order. Let's all rise and say the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. Can I have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
So moved?
Lisa, second?
Second.
Katie? Comments or changes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I think we will wait for community comments. Can we pull up Paul, Superintendent Law? And we'll go to our first agenda item is approval of the resolution calling for the school board special election. Superintendent Law.
Chair Vitale, members of the board, our first agenda item tonight is a resolution that's required for a special board election. What you, as you know, you filled a partial board seat. That seat will go back on the ballot this November. Tonight we have Paul Bourgeois, who manages elections out of his office, giving us just an update. If you have questions, this is a fairly routine item for approval.
Thank you, Superintendent Law, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This resolution has been prepared by our legal counsel, Knudsen, Flynn and Deans, to comply with all the requirements for an election in the state of Minnesota. And we actually have people able to register through August 16th. So this will get us ready. We'll file this with the county auditor and be able to hold the election on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bourgeois. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution as presented?
So moved?
Lisa, second?
Second.
Patrick? Comments or discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I think do we have any community comments? Community comments. Community comments is the opportunity for the public to address the school board on an item included in this agenda in accordance with the guidelines printed at the end of this agenda. We don't have anybody that wishes to address the board. So we will move on to our next agenda item, which is approval of the AP, IB, supplemental, and new course materials. Superintendent Law.
Members of the board, in an earlier work session, you had the chance to preview these materials. They're supplemental materials that are many of them digital, as well as new materials for AP and IB. This is part of an annual process of continually improving what we provide for students. We have Assistant Superintendent Ledoux here if there are questions, but that's for your approval tonight so they can be implemented.
Great. Do we need to go through them? No. Can I have a motion to approve the instructional resources included in this report for the 2022-2023 school year?
So move.
Mark, second?
Second.
Megan? Question or comments or discussion? Yes.
Just a question. I know these materials have been out for review. Did we have any feedback from the public or any comments that we need to be aware of?
Didn't realize that was to me. Say that again.
These materials have been available for public review, and so I'm just asking if there were any comments or feedback from the public after they reviewed them.
Superintendent.
I see Ms. Ledoux's up here. I can share that we did have requests to review these materials. People came in and they were in this room, open to the public to review as long as they needed, and the feedback from them was that they looked good. And anytime we're doing an adoption, we open up our materials for members of the public to come and review on site. And so I understand that that's happened within the last 2 weeks again, and there were no questions or concerns.
And with the digital resources, we are able to send links so that they can be reviewed by people at home. And we did have a couple of community members request those.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Great. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the presentation on the 2022 parent survey results. Superintendent Wall.
Board members, this district has a tradition of asking community for feedback as part of striving for excellence and modifying that survey on an annual basis to talk about current needs. We have the benefit of almost a decade of community survey information, and tonight, Director of Communications Jackie Getty will be sharing this year's information. One of the things that this board has done well is share that information back to the entire community so people see that their voice was heard. With that, Director Getty.
Superintendent Law, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm excited to present tonight's the results tonight of the annual parent survey. Every year, as you know, we survey our parents from mid-May to mid-June, and this year we had 2,803 respond to the survey. About 63% were resident parents, and about 37% had open enrolled students. 94% this year have their students learning in person, and 6% are in our full Tonka online e-learning program. And we had a mix this year of parents that have been with us for just a few years or a year, a couple of years, or quite a long time, and that has shifted over time. For a long time, we only had a few coming in that really had not experienced Minnetonka throughout, as we've had no budget cuts, and so we really looked at that to see what experience were our parents having and knowing, but more and more they're having the same experience because we haven't had budget cuts throughout that time. So this year, when we asked how parents are feeling about the educational quality of the district, 96% said that the educational experience is excellent or good. That is up from 94% last year, and it's back a little bit closer to where it's been more consistently pre-COVID, which was good to see. We always ask whether the education has improved or decreased or stayed the same, and you can see the shifts over the last year with 24% saying improved, 64% now saying it remained the same, and 18% saying it decreased. We have worked closely with our ECFE and preschool coordinator to talk to our ECFE and preschool families, and this year in the ECFE survey, only 11 families responded, so it really wasn't enough to give good data. So we'll work with them again next year on a survey and really several efforts, I think, to get parents to respond to that, because it is really valuable data. For preschool, we had 28 families respond, so we had a little bit better data. So we're comparing it here to last year. And you can see that there are a couple where the numbers have really increased. I put those in blue. And where a number has decreased at least 4% over last year, I put that in red. And you'll see that again throughout the survey. And it's great to see later when you see the uptick from last year. But we did see on here the satisfaction with communication from the child's teacher dropped. And so we'll work with them on that to see where we can help them to improve. In elementary, we divided into different sections when we talk to families, and this section's on teaching and learning. And the percentages there are the parents who agreed or strongly agreed with these statements. And you can see the numbers over the different years. And they really do stay consistently on the elementary level in teaching and learning in the high 90s across. We had some slight fluctuations with a point here or there. Technology is very important to my child's learning, dropped 5% last year, and then this year it dropped another 2%, so that is something that we look at, and we know that it's probably COVID related as we introduced the iPads in grades K through 3, and certainly heard about some of that in the comments, as I'm sure you've read through. Good to see that the overall satisfaction with the educational experience is up 1% and back closer to where it typically is. On the questions about building relationships. Last year we definitely saw a drop of parents that felt like there weren't a lot of opportunities to really get involved in their child's school. We weren't having parent volunteers in the schools because of COVID, and so you see that drop from 94% who say they had meaningful opportunities to be involved in 2020 to 75 last year, and it's good to see it's coming back up. as there were opportunities toward the end of the year to be back involved with schools. And a lot of people, again, expressed in the comments they're excited about what's ahead and the opportunities to hopefully return to normal. I believe the school provides a safe learning environment that stayed consistent at 96% for our elementary families, and the principal at my child's school is accessible. 93% say yes. These are some new questions we added this year, really to stay in line with the school board goals, and then also to reflect in the next couple of questions on the COVID Safe Learning Plan. I believe my child's teacher provided robust and comprehensive remote instruction when my child was involved in e-learning days. And we clarified too, this was not for full e-learning talk online families. This was for students who had an e-learning day, whether it was through quarantine or whether everyone was having one. And 86% of parents strongly agree with that statement. I believe the school provides an environment that supports my child's sense of well-being. This is tied, of course, to our goal around well-being and belonging. 93% of parents said they agree with that. I believe the school provides an environment that supports my child's sense of belonging, and 93% of elementary parents said they agree with that statement too. These were also new questions. What are the top successes with regard to the district's COVID-19 Safe Learning Plan this year? We had a variety of options, and then they also could write in an option. And 62% said accessible and reliable technology. 55% said communications from the teacher were a success. 52% said my student's connection with the teacher. 43% communication from the principal or district. And then my student's engagement with learning, my student's connection with classmates, and academic support for my student. And they could check as many as they wanted. And what were the challenges with the plan? Elementary parents said my student's self-motivation, my student's connection with classmates, my students' engagement with learning. And it's funny that you'll see some of them duplicated. Some parents said that was a challenge, some parents said it was a success. My students experienced no challenges. My students' connection with the teacher, and social and emotional support and resources for my student. We ask about technology every year, and let's get to that page. And this year we did not see any significant shifts in how elementary parents are feeling about whether the iPad works well, whether they're comfortable with educational screen time or social entertainment screen time, and how their child is using technology. And that was a little bit of a surprise on this one. We'll see a difference in the middle school one, which was interesting, but I thought we'd really see a shift here, and the numbers didn't change significantly over last year. Regarding homework, there were some shifts. There were up to 2 percentages that went between too much and too little homework, and we divide them out by the elementary school. We do give this information along with a snapshot of all of the answers for the school for each principal so that they can see where their specific numbers are and what they may have to work with or talk with their teacher teams with. And by subject area in elementaries, this stays pretty steady. This is pretty much what it was last year. We saw a 1% increase in satisfaction in science, music, and world language, and a 2% satisfaction increase in social studies and physical education. No drops. Bullying was a different story, and it was a different story across all 3 grade levels. There was a 6% decrease in awareness of our bullying prevention program, so that's definitely something we can work with our elementary leadership on. There was a 4% increase in parents saying that their child reported a bullying incident at the elementary level, and a 2% increase in parents saying that they helped their child to report a bullying incident. And this is a question about whether they'd recommend their elementary school to a friend or neighbor. Very slight shifts, a percent here and there. Typically, the average of all 6 elementaries is between 94 and 96. This year it's 95, so if it's kind of right in there. Last year it was 96. And again, we share this information with the principals along with all of their other data for their school. And then we ask for comments on what would you commend your elementary school principal on? The number one thing, and this has stayed consistent several years in a row, strong communications, and then strong leadership, and then great teachers. Those 3 have pretty much stayed where they are the last several years. Positive and happy environment, warm and caring, engaged leaders, and accessible and responsive. And at the bottom of each page, I showed how many people respond to the open-ended questions. And then what would you advise your elementary school principal on? The numbers are actually, if you look back, figure out how to go back. They're a lot smaller, so 237 may say the top answer, and then 86 may say the concern. So it is a smaller amount, but still, these are the questions that came up, or the advice that they'd give. Too much tech, screen time, or iPad concern was number 1. Communication suggestion or concern. A teacher or staff member concern, nothing. Academic suggestion or concern. Again, that more parent volunteer question came up. And then more recess and outdoor time. That hasn't shown on this page. We usually get a few comments, but there were 38. Moving on to middle school, these are the questions around teaching and learning, and you'll see that middle column, that was last year with all of the red where they had dropped at least 5%. And it's so nice to see the shift to 2022 where you see them in blue in front of you, and it's probably harder for the audience, but the ones that are in blue mean they've rebounded at least 4%, and we have none in the red, so none have dropped from last year significantly, maybe a point for one, but most have grown and rebounded or gone past where they were. My child likes school, 87%, up 3%. Teachers know my child well, 86%, up 5% over last year, and tracking back toward where we were in 2020. Teachers care about my child, 98%. Technology is very important to my child's learning. That has stayed consistent with last year at 85%. My child feels successful at school, 89%, up 4% over last year. And again, you see that middle column where we saw so many drops last year, and that was so concerning, and this year seeing them rebound, that's really great to see. Overall, I'm satisfied with my child's educational experience, 92%, and that's tracking back toward 95, where we'd be more likely or expect to see it. We ask about homework here too little, just right, or too much. There were very few shifts. There was a percentage that went from too little to too much on science and on language arts. Is the level of rigor and challenge your child has in class too easy, just right, or too difficult? And this stayed consistent with last year. On the technology questions, we actually saw a slight uptick on this slide about the iPad working well, just a couple percentage points, but that was kind of surprising to see that, because there were so many concerns that were raised later in the comments about iPad. So we'll see that later, but on this page, on this slide, on this question, they said the iPad is working well for their child, and that was what, I have to do math here, 73%. By subject, you can see the numbers have stayed pretty consistent over the last 3 years with satisfaction from parents in these subjects, of their child in these subjects. And there you'll see orchestra took a hit last year. I'm not sure what was going on there, but it was at 88% down from 96, and now it's back to 98. So that's great to see. And then what were the top successes with the district's COVID-19 Safe Learning Plan at the middle school level? Again, accessible, reliable technology. So thank you, Executive Director of Technology, Mike Dronin and team. Communications from the principal and district. Both of our middle school principals are just rock star communicators. If you've ever read Pete's email home to families, it's entertaining. You could put them together for a book. My students' engagement with learning. Communication from teachers, my students' connection with teachers, my students' connection with classmates, academic support for my student. And then for challenges, some of the same that you just saw. So for some students, these were challenges where they were successes. For another, my students' connection with classmates, my students' self-motivation, my students' engagement with learning, my students' connection with teacher, keeping up with schoolwork, and communication from teachers. These were the new questions we asked. I believe my child's teacher provided robust and comprehensive remote instruction when my child was involved in e-learning days. 78% said they agree with that statement. I believe the school provides an environment that supports my child's well-being. 88% of middle school parents agreed with that statement. And I believe the school provides an environment that supports my child's sense of belonging. 83% agreed with that statement. On the building relationship questions, again, you can see the ones that went into the red last year where there was a drop of several percent. And this year we did actually have one, and we saw a drop of 6% last year in guidance services, and then another 2% this year in satisfaction of that. And I know the name of my counselor, we saw a drop of 8% this year, so that is something that we can work with the middle school principals on. We do an effort at the high school to make sure that families know who their child's counselor is, and we can do the same with the middle school. We asked about bullying, and we did see an increase here too, as we did in elementary. Last year we had 76% of parents who said their child was not bullied at all at the middle school level, and this year it's 69%, so that's a pretty big increase. Most of the increase came in the 1 to 2 times, which, at least it's not the constant, but it's still not something we want to see. We asked whether they would recommend their school to a friend or neighbor, and 92% said yes, and that's consistent with where we were last year. The highest I think we've been in this was 97%. It was about 4 years ago, and we're typically around 95%. We asked what you would commend your middle school principal on. Strong communications, not a surprise. Excellent leadership, great teachers and staff, a happy, positive environment, engaged academic rigor, and being responsive and accessible. And then what would you advise your middle school principal on? 61 people, 18% had an academic suggestion, 13% communication suggestion or concern, 10% iPad or screen time or a text suggestion or concern, 7% said nothing, good job. 6% said they'd like to see more diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. 6% said they have a teacher or staff concern, and 5% said they have a lunch suggestion or concern. On to the high school. In the teaching and learning categories, you can see again last year all of the red where we saw a drop in so many of those areas, and it's good to see those rebound. I believe my child enjoys school was 77% last year, tracking back up toward where it was in 2020 and before that at 82%. I believe my child is able to pursue an education that is personally meaningful, 90%, up from last year. And overall, I'm satisfied with my child's educational experience, 89%, up 3% over last year. These are the new questions. I believe my child's teacher provided robust and comprehensive remote instruction when my child was involved in e-learning days, 67%. I think this is not a surprise. We had heard from quite a few parents about when their child was quarantining and really wanting to have more direct instruction, and so that is something that we saw in our survey that we did in December, and it's something that we would expect would show up here. I believe the school provides an environment that supports my child's sense of well-being. 84% of parents agreed with that at the high school level, and I believe the school provides an environment that supports my child's sense of belonging. 80% agreed with that. What were the top successes of the district safe learning plan? These were all the same as at the middle school level and in all the same order. And actually the numbers were really close too. Accessible, reliable technology, communication from principal and district, my students' engagement with learning, communication from teachers, connection with classmates, and academic support. Challenges were similar to the middle school, few shifts. My students' connection with classmates, my students' self-motivation, engagement with learning, connection with teacher, social and emotional support, and keeping up with the school work. The average amount of homework that my child has, we're up 2% on too much, and that came from just right. So last year there was that difference. Satisfaction by subject area, you can see the areas that were in red last year and the changes that were there, and the change back this year. 5% up in music, 5% up in physical education, and 6% in momentum and technical education, which is great to see on all accounts. And we also saw a nice shift with Vantage, and that went up 4%, which is, again, great to see. We've seen some really wonderful growth in that program. On the technology side, we had a 4% increase in parents who said that the iPad works well for their child. Otherwise, we didn't see a lot of shifts here. On this page about building relationships, I feel welcomed by staff at my child's school during the school day. Last year, 89% was a drop from 95. Now we're back up to 92, and again, I think COVID related. I'm satisfied with communications. We saw a drop to 76. We're up a little bit there, but work to do at 77. And we did see a drop again with guidance services and with really the awareness about the child's counselor. So that again, it's an effort we do every year, and so we'll be working on it again with Principal Erickson and team. As far as bullying, we had a rise of 8% in parents saying that their child was bullied in one way, in one of these categories. The school works cooperatively with parents in the community to prevent drug and alcohol use. 7 fewer parents agreed with us on this statement. So last year that was so 7 more disagreed with that statement, I should say. Would you recommend your child's school to a friend or neighbor? 89% said yes to the high school, 11% said no. That is a 1% drop from last year. And then what would you commend your high school principal on? Strong communications, that is not a surprise at all. Fantastic communicator, Principal Erickson. Excellent leadership, academic programs and opportunities, engaged, accessible and responsive, and great teachers and staff. And these are things that parents advised the high school principal on. They had an academic suggestion or concern, a teacher or staff concern, a request for more diversity, equity, and inclusion, a request for no politics, no critical race theory, and no social agenda in the classroom, communication suggestion or concern, a transportation concern with parking lot or drop-off pickup or bus concern, and the safe learning plan. And most of that was on masking. School and district leadership. So we asked all parents to whether they agreed or disagreed with these statements. And the percentages are based on those that said that they agreed or strongly agreed. School district administrators are accessible to me if I have ideas, concerns, or questions about the district and its schools. 82% strongly agree or agree. School board members are accessible to me if I have ideas, concerns, or questions about the district or its schools. 73% strongly agree or agree. I trust the Minnetonka School Board and the district administration to do what is right for children in the district. 74% strongly agree or agree. And our community receives a good value from its investment in local schools, local public schools. 95% strongly agree or agree. And the bottom one is up 1% from last year. We ask about engagement. I prefer to engage with the school board in the following ways. School board news email is still first. Emails, personal calls, and in-person meetings, second at 31%. School board web pages. And then the bottom two flipped. It used to be school news postcard and then attending the meetings, but we've had an influx of attendees and people are liking that. So you saw that shift on this page too. School board and district leadership questions. So following communications from the district regarding important announcements, events, and opportunities are helpful. These stayed all in this order. We added peach jar flyers. I don't know why we didn't have them last year, but boy, that rocketed to the top. So emails from the superintendent or principal were definitely number one, then district website content, then peach jar flyers, then social media, videos from the principal, annual report, feature videos from the district, school news postcards, which we mailed to all families and to residents, printed flyers, posters, and then the Let's Talk feature on the website. Innovation is critical to our education system remaining relevant. What would you suggest we start or stop doing in our schools to remain relevant to students' needs? We asked all parents this question. 192 of them had an academic or curriculum suggestion. 203 of them, I guess I should have flipped those. I think I just didn't update that number. 203 would be wrong. Text suggestion, less iPad use or less screen time. 8% had a request for no political or social agendas or no critical race theory. 5% said more experiential and real-world learning. 5% said they would request more diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. 5% said keep doing what you're doing. And 4% said more mental health support. And then we ask final two questions. What would you commend the district on? And then what would you advise the district on? So this first one is what would you commend the district on? Number one was academic programs and opportunities. Then excellent leadership. COVID protocols and safety precautions. Focus on child-centered excellence. great teachers and staff, strong communications, and academic rigor. And parents advise the district on a request for more diversity, equity, and inclusion, a request to keep political or social agendas and critical race theory out of classrooms in schools, academic and curricular concern, communication suggestion or concern, nothing, and tech, iPad, and screen time suggestion or concern. So we do, as I said, break these out by school and share them with the principal. I also share them with Dr. Ledoux so that she can share them with her team by area, and I share them with our tech director, executive director, and with our executive director of special education, and wherever it's helpful for them to see their areas broken out more completely. And then I can also do a deep dive into specific areas if we want to really look into something and say, why is something happening, or which parents are really feeling this way about something. So anyway, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them if I can.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Gady or general comments? Lisa?
Just a comment, thank you for all the work, and especially thanks for coding all the comments. I know it's really, really helpful.
Sue Ryan
Thanks, Sue.
was really helpful to me. I did maybe 2,000 of them. She did maybe 7,000 of them.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Sue.
So
Yeah.
thank you.
It's helpful to have them, and, you know, when we on the board do read through them all, and, you know, certainly it's helpful to have them coded and all of that as you're reading through it. It kind of helps. And thanks to all the community members who took the time to fill out the survey. It is really important to us to hear from you, so.
Thanks.
Anyone else? I would just echo that thanks, and thanks to the community as well.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is approval of sale of the 2022B general obligation long-term facilities maintenance bonds. Superintendent Lowe.
Board members, Chair, on an annual basis, when we do long-term facilities improvements, which we're fortunate to receive those funds, we go out to the community, the larger community, and sell those bonds for the betterment of our schools. Tonight, Chief Operations Officer Paul Briswell will talk about that sale, and we're fortunate to have such a strong bond rating to be able to do that at the benefit of taxpayers. Mr. Briswell.
Thank you, Superintendent Law, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. On May 21st, or July 21st, I'm sorry, we sold our 2022B long-term facility maintenance bonds, $8,985,000 worth of bonds that we're going to use for all of our summer long-term maintenance projects for summer of '23 and fiscal '24. And in fact, we're actually working on designing those projects and getting them out to bid because the lead time on construction items such as HVAC units and various mechanical systems is very long right now. So we're getting out ahead of the game. But in terms of this bond issue, this was a sale where our AAA, the weight of our AAA was really brought to bear on the market and it came out favorable for us. We were expecting a 4.17% rate for our bonds. We were selling 2 days before the Federal Open Market Committee when they were expected to raise their rate by 75 basis points. But we ended up at 3.66%, and we sold out in about an hour and a half. We typically sell fast, especially for our AAA GO bonds. Travelers Insurance out of St. Paul actually bought about half of the deal, and Baird told us that they're very selective in who they pick to invest in. So they called me a couple days before and asked a lot of questions. And so it was kind of gratifying to see them, just to know that somebody who is really very particular about their credit quality was willing to take on 50% of our bonds. So with that, just would ask you to approve the sale of the bonds at 3.36% interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bourgeois. Can I have a motion?
3.36, sorry.
3.36, yes. Can I have a motion to approve the 2022B sale resolution as presented by Dorsey and Whitney?
So move.
Katie, second?
Second.
Mark? Questions or discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bourgeois. Can I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So move.
Lisa, second?
Second.
Katie? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Board reports. Does anyone have a report?
No.
We've been off for a little bit.
Mhm.
Superintendent's report. Superintendent Wall.
Chairman, board members, over the last 5 weeks, I've had the privilege of being all over the district, north, south, east, and west, and I can tell you, at first blush, I'm just amazed at what you're able to offer students here, what we are able to offer students. I can tell you that I've had the chance to watch staff working diligently to be prepared for the next year, and it's just really exciting. And I just can't wait for the next month to happen and get our kids back in school. It's been great. And I do want to announce, this is probably an announcement too, Tour de Tonka, cross your fingers that there won't be rain, a few days out, 2 days out for Tour de Tonka. Thanks for those of you in the community who are volunteering. It takes a huge group of people. I had the chance to meet with law enforcement officers last week that coordinate all of those routes, and just an impressive community, city, county, municipality, and law enforcement emergency response pulling together to do this fun community connection. So that's it.
Great. Any questions? Any announcements? Welcome.
Thanks. It's great to be here, really.
Great. Anyone else? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Lisa, second?
Second.
Questions or, well, don't take that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. 7:37.
Welcome.